So right now I'm working on what am I going to read next, and I've got some candidates for the next physical book that I'm going to read. I usually read one or two hardcover or paperback books, physical copies of the book, in addition to probably multiple books that I read on my Kindle device. So I keep myself pretty occupied with a lot of different books that I'm reading at any one time. And so I have a good mix of books that I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to read the description and just kind of talk about what these books are and maybe give you a little bit of insight. Or if you know me well enough, you've watched enough of the videos, you have a pretty good idea of why I picked some of the books that are in this small group of books that I'm going to read. So that's why I keep looking down here right now, in case you were wondering. So I'm going to go and start looking at some of them right now. So the first one is from Dean Koontz right here. You can see the book right there. And it is called The Door to December by Dean Koontz. And I picked this one up at a used book sale at the local city library here where I live. And I saw that they were having a book sale where they sell some of the extra books, I guess, that they have around the library that they want to get rid of. And they're usually pretty good quality authors and good quality kind of commercial type fiction. So I said, you know what, I'll go out and check it out. It was the first time I'd ever done that. It was actually the first time I'd been in the local library here in town. And so I thought, you know, it'd be kind of cool to go and check it out and see what they have that might be interesting. So this is one of the ones that I did pick up, and I'm going to read just the description of the book, the back cover, although in this case the author and his dog are on the back cover, so it's not a true back cover in that sense. But anyway, little Melanie had been kidnapped when she was only 3. She was 9 when she was found wandering the LA streets with blank eyes. What had become of her in all those years of darkness? And what was the terrible secret clutching at her soul that she dared not even whisper? Her loving mother and the police desperately hunted for the answer. They needed Melanie to help get to the bottom of the most savage scene of carnage the city had ever seen. Well, that kind of escalated pretty quickly there, didn't it? And they would do anything to save her from whatever dreadful force or thing had invaded her young life. But first, they would have to save themselves from a rising tide of terror and from an icy evil howling through. So that is, I honestly don't really know a whole lot other than what I read on that description. And so I'm reading it and I'm thinking that maybe you're going to get into some kind of supernatural stuff going on here. I can't say that for sure, but it kind of gave me that a little bit of that feel. So that's a little bit different than what I typically read, even though I have read Dean Koontz before, and I've had some of his books in the past, some physical books that I haven't actually read, but I did read some of his shorter ones on the Kindle device. So if you go check my Goodreads, you'll be able to see some of that, of what I've read from him. Although it's not a ton of them, but I have read a few. So this is certainly one candidate, something that's a little different than what I typically read. So I'm gonna keep this one in the pile for consideration. Now, then there's this one right here, and this is a pretty serious looking book right there. And this one is A Man in Full by Tom Wolfe. And again, this is a monster of a book right here. This is a book that I bought used through Amazon, and I bought it several years ago. And this is actually one of the books that I recovered from my garage when I moved from my apartment to my house. A lot of my books ended up in storage in the garage because I was basically too lazy to move all of that into the house, and so I kept some of the books, a lot of the books in fact, in storage in the garage, and this is one of them. And I as I was cleaning out my garage this past summer, I think it was this past summer, I stumbled across this one and I thought, man, that is a big book. And I started to wonder, like, why did I grab this book? So I'm gonna read the inside cover, and I think it'll give you a little bit of a feel for maybe why I decided to pick this particular book. A decade ago, the Bonfire of the Vanities defined an era and established Tom Wolfe as our prime fictional chronicler of America at its most outrageous and alive. Now the master is back with a pitch-perfect, coast-to-coast portrait of our wild and woolly, no-holds-barred, multifacious country on the cusp of the millennium. The setting is Atlanta, Georgia, a racially mixed, late-century boomtown full of fresh wealth and wily politicians. The protagonist is Charles Croker, once a college football star, now a late middle-aged Atlanta conglomerate king whose outsized ego has at last hit up against reality. Charles has a 29,000-acre quail shooting plantation, a young and demanding second wife, and a half-empty office complex with a staggering load of debt. So it gets kind of interesting. So these are some components that typically grab me. So you got a little bit of a racial component right there. You've got a sports component there, as he's a former football star. So those are a couple things that right off the bat kind of grabbed me. Here, I'll continue. Meanwhile, Conrad Hensley, idealistic young father of two, is laid off from his job at the Croker Global Foods warehouse near Oakland and finds himself spiraling into the low depths of American legal system. And back in Atlanta, when star Georgia Tech running back Fareed the Cannon Fannin, cool name, a homegrown product of the city slums, is accused of date raping the daughter of a pillar of the white establishment, upscale black lawyer Roger White II, you know, you gotta have that second there. I'm actually the third, so it's kind of interesting when I see that, is asked to represent Fannin and help keep the city's delicate racial balance from blowing sky high. And then it continues. Networks of illegal Asian immigrants crisscrossing the continent, daily life behind bars, shady real estate syndicates, the cast-off first wives of the corporate elite. Wolf shows us contemporary America with all the verve, wit, and insight that have made him our most admired novelist. Charles Croker's deliverance from his tribulations provides an unforgettable denouement to the most widely awaited, hilarious, and telling novel America has seen in ages. That's deep. Wow. Tom Wolfe's outstanding achievement to date. And you can see here on the inside cover there's the master right there, Tom Wolfe there, with a little bit of a biography about him. Of course, The Bonfire of the Vanities is probably one of the most famous books that he has written. So this is actually pretty interesting to me, although albeit quite intimidating, because we're looking at a page count of more than 700 words. So that is certainly not for the weak at heart to jump into that without giving some serious consideration right there, because I'm kind of a slow reader, and so it might take me a little while to, you know, really kind of crack that nut a little bit. Next up is, this is a book that I picked up one day when I was in either Rite Aid or Walgreens. I think I was in Rite Aid, and I picked this one up right here. It is called The Party, and it is written by Robin Harding, internationally best-selling author. And one of the reviews of it is tense and riveting. What lies inside a family is not always as it seems. Megan Miranda, New York Times bestselling author of All the Missing Girls. I've actually heard of that book. I haven't read it, but I've actually heard of it. So I'll read the back cover here a little bit. I'll just read it all. One invitation, a lifetime of regrets. Sweet 16, an exciting coming of age, a milestone, a rite of passage. Jeff and Kim Sanders plan on throwing a party for their daughter, Hannah, a sweet girl with good grades and nice friends. Rather than an extravagant, indulgent affair, they invite 4 girls over for pizza, cake, movies, and a sleepover. What could possibly go wrong? But things do go wrong. Horrifically so. And Jeff and Kim's flawless life in a wealthy San Francisco suburb suddenly begins to come apart. In the ugly aftermath, friends become enemies, dark secrets are revealed in the Sanders' marriage, and the truth about their perfect daughter is exposed. So you get kind of the depth of what's going on there, and so you're seeing some hints of some marital issues and some hint that, the perfect life that they have kind of built or established or convince people that they have is maybe not quite as perfect as they let you believe. So I saw that and I thought it was interesting, and sometimes I don't always take the bait when I see books in stores, because I know they try to bait you there, where they have the book shelves like really close to the register and you're waiting in a long line and you start looking, and that's why they put all that cheap candy there, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll grab some Tic Tacs or something like that, or I'll grab some gum or some lotion or some hand sanitizer or whatever they have right there close by, candy bar, and then you are tempted because you're waiting in line and your mind starts drifting and you start looking at the tabloids and all the other stuff and the magazines, and all of a sudden you pick up probably an extra $20-30 and stuff that you weren't going to get, but you were tempted because of good product placement inside the store. So they got me with good product placement. This was very interesting, and I thought, you know what, it was worth buying. I'm not sure how much I paid for it here. Looks like it was $8.99, so not a bad value for a book. Of course, not too many people read nowadays, that's a shame, but that's a whole nother story. Now, here's one that I bought on Amazon, and I pre-ordered this book because it looked like it was going to be really interesting. And as I started to look at it a little bit more, I thought, I really like the description of this book, so I'm going to go ahead and take a chance on it. It is A Small Town by Thomas Perry. And again, like I said, I pre-ordered this book, so I'm going to, apparently I paid a pretty good penny for it. I didn't remember that, but it seemed like it was worth it. So anyway, here's the description. In a small town, 12 conspirators meticulously plan to throw open all the gates to the prison that contains them, so that more than 1,000 convicts may escape and pour into the nearby small town. The newly freed prisoners rape, murder, and destroy the town, burning down homes and businesses. An immense search ensues, but the 12 who plotted it all get away. So again, that's actually, if you're writing that book description, that's actually a great first paragraph right there. It really gets you into it with a lot of elements that just grab your attention right off the bat. So I was hooked right off the bat with that one. After 2 years, all efforts by the local and federal agencies to find the masterminds of the escape have been in vain. The mayor and city attorney meet, and Leah Hawkins, almost misread that, and Leah Hawkins, a 6'2" former basketball player and resident good cop, is placed on sabbatical so that she can tour the country learning advanced police procedures. The sabbatical is merely a ruse, however, as her real job is to track the infamous 12 and kill them. Boom! It just escalated right there, big time. Driven by a need to avenge her personal losses and those of the community around her, Leah begins a systematic hunt that reveals both her ruthlessness and her deep humanity. Her mission takes her across the country, from Florida to New York, from California to an anti-government settlement deep in the Ozarks. Soon, the surviving fugitives realize that she is what she is up to, and a race to kill or be killed ensues. Full of exhilarating twists and surprisingly resonant, A Small Town will sweep readers along on Leah's quest for vengeance. Yo, I like the sound of this one right here. This just moved up really high on my list of possibilities. Okay, next up on the list here, we have Running Scared by Lisa Jackson. And I actually have a few books by Lisa Jackson that I have not read yet, because for a few years I really went heavy into a writing phase, and I did a lot of writing. And in the last year or so, I said, I gotta get back into reading much more. And so I picked up this one recently. They got me at the convenience store again. They got me at I think it was at Rite Aid again. They got me with this one. So I'll just read the back cover here real quick. No matter how fast you run, the newborn baby boy is beautiful, perfect, and hers for the asking. All Kate Summers has to do is agree to one condition. She must disappear from Boston and never breathe a word about the adoption to anyone. or how far you go. 15 years later, Kate has built a good life for herself and her son, John, in Hopewell, Oregon. Still, she is haunted by the fear that he will somehow be taken away. Then, Dagan O'Rourke arrives in town and strikes up a friendship with her and John. But Dagan has his own past to hide, one with shocking ties to hers. So you can see how they're weaving the plot together, introducing this Dagan O'Rourke character. A killer will always find you. Someone is watching Kate, watching her son, and is willing to go to any lengths to claim him. And the one man Kate is tempted to trust has dangerous secrets that could change her world forever. Soon, the past Kate thought she could outrun will explode, unearthing a legacy of lies and treachery, and a fury powerful enough to kill. Running Scared by Kate Jackson. Lisa Jackson, excuse me. Kate Jackson is the actress from Charlie's Angels, I think. So, anyway, a little tidbit right there for those of you who love the 70s and TV shows from the 70s. Now, here's another one that I thought was interesting that I grabbed because it just kind of, actually, I didn't really grab it. It sort of grabbed me. And that is, They All Fall Down. Now, that's a great cover. And the subhead is, Every Girl Would Die to Be on the List. Get it? They're face down. They all fall down. It is written by Roxanne St. Clair. And so I'll read the back cover. Every year, the lives of 10 girls at Vienna High are transformed, all because of The List. Kinsey Summerall can't imagine how she has been voted onto a list of the hottest girls in school. But when she lands at number 5, her average life becomes dazzling. Doors open to the best parties, new friends surround her, the cutest jock in school is after her. This is the power of The List. If you're on it, your life changes. If you're on it this year, your life ends. So I thought this was actually pretty cool, and it really grabbed me just because it was a really interesting back cover there, and I really thought the story would be fun to read. I thought it would be a relatively quick read, and it kind of looks like that here. It's a little over 300 pages, about 339 pages it looks like. So a very interesting book. This is definitely one I'll be reading, probably in my next 5 at least. I'll probably be reading this. I actually did start reading it. It looks like I read about 6 pages into it. So, but it does sound really interesting. So again, They All Fall Down by Roxanne St. Clair. Interesting possibility there for sure. Next up, 3 more to go here, including this one. Next up is John Feinstein. Feinstein? I think it's Feinstein. John Feinstein, Backfield Boys, a football mystery in black and white. It was supposed to be about talent, not race. So you get what this is going about all the way. Or I should say already. Freshman footballers Jason Roden and Tom Jefferson are a perfect pair. Jason is blazing fast wide receiver, while his best friend Tom has all the skills a standout quarterback needs. After summer football camp at the elite sports-focused boarding school in Virginia, the boys are thrilled to be invited back with full ride scholarships. But on day 1 of practice, they're shocked when the team's coaching staff makes Tom, a black kid, a receiver, and Jason, a white kid, a quarterback. Confronted with mounting evidence of deep-seated racial bias, the boys speak out, risking their scholarships and chances to play. As tensions ratchet up with coaches and other players, local newspaper reporters begin a secret investigation. With every new twist, Tom and Jason must decide how much they are willing to lose in a conflict with powerful forces that has nothing and everything to do with the game they love. So it's kind of an interesting story where you get some biases about that some of us probably thought were in the past about race and quarterback and whether black people play quarterback and stereotypes and whatnot. So I thought that was very interesting, and I did buy this on Amazon. So very interesting read, I think is going to be in my not too distant future. Here's an oldie that I've had for a long time, Too Far by Mike Lupica. I've had it for a long time, haven't read it, but I do want to read it. And I'll just read one of the paragraphs here. The biggest thing that's ever happened to the Long Island town of South Fork is its high school basketball team. Blessed with 2 players of national caliber and the white-hot attention of the media, not even the death of the team's manager can dampen the enthusiasm for long. But then a kid on the school paper begins to hear things, stories of brutalities at a team retreat, of hazing that went over the line, of murder. So you got the murder mystery right there, and you got the sports angle, and you got just a really interesting plot that I'm really interested in. So I'll probably be reading this one. Again, this is one that was recovered from my garage that I'm actually very, very interested in, and probably will read here in short order. And then lastly is a book that I did read a long time ago, but I've been wanting to read it again and to maybe focus in a little bit more as I read it this time, and that is Bad Desire by Gary Devin. And this is a really interesting book because it deals with sort of a taboo subject that is just intriguing. Kind of sort of like the taboo relationship of the older and the younger. Rachel Buchanan knew. She knew as clearly as she knew the terrain of her beloved garden that Mayor Henry Lee Slater was after her granddaughter Sheila. Since she had discovered Sheila was meeting Slater in secret, Rachel has resolved to put a stop to it. She would expose him for what he was, to the citizens of Rio del Palmos and to his wife. But Rachel underestimated the obsessive nature of Slater's desire. He could not and would not give up the girl, nor could he run the risk of Rachel telling what she knew. So it's an interesting story right there. You know, it's kind of almost like a Lifetime movie plot there a little bit, and I'm surprised it's not a Lifetime movie by now, but I read it a long time ago. I've got another copy of it actually somewhere in the house here that the cover was ripped off, and unfortunate, but I did pick up this copy later. Bought it on Amazon as a used book, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading this. So lots to sort through here in this little bunch of books that I have here, and I'm gonna try to figure out which one that I want to read physical. It'll probably be one of these, but maybe it could be another one, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be one of these that I'll pick up. That'll be my next physical copy of a book that I will read. So stay tuned hopefully for future reviews as I get going with some more reading to kind of balance out the work that I'm doing with writing. Reading and writing, they go together much more than you could possibly ever imagine. So keep reading if you're a writer, and keep writing or start writing if you're a reader.